Di. Now, Mr. Di, amongst other things, spoke about our next guest, Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo Yiannopoulos has been invited by Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm to address the Australian Parliament. Now, this doesn't mean he goes into the main chamber, but it does mean he goes into a room and he can give a talk, and parliamentarians are allowed to, well, turn up and listen or not, as the case may be. Now, when I asked Richard Di, leader of the Greens, what he thought about this, here's a bit of what he had to say.
He's a white supremacist. He's been an apologist for paedophilia. He's somebody who has, deeply misogynist and sexist views. When you think about how bad Twitter is and some of the stuff, the garbage that's on Twitter, even Twitter have banned him.
Well, Milo Yiannopoulos, joins us right now. Mr. Yiannopoulos, good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
I heard a discussion you had recently, and you said you never visited Australia. You've been here for a day thus far. What are your impressions?
Well, aside from that ugly opera house, people are lovely here. The weather has been delightful. People are so enthusiastic and happy to have me. It's been wonderful. It's a beautiful country.
Okay, so I hope you just heard that quote from leader of the Greens here, Richard Di. He said you're misogynistic, you're racist, you're sexist. How do you respond to those labels?
Well, he said far worse things than that too, bless him. This is what the left does when they can't beat you on the facts. They can't beat you on the merits. They call you names instead. If I'm a white supremacist, as he claims, I'm not a very good one. My husband's an African-American. If I'm any of the things that he suggests, I'm not doing very well at it. Actually, this is, you can always tell when greenies and lefties are worried or panicky or afraid of somebody, because instead of combating them with facts and logic and reasons, they call them names. They call us racist, they call us sexist, they call us whatever it will take to get us banned from venues, banished from public life, to try desperately to stop people listening to us. Well, unfortunately, it's not working. I'll be speaking at the Parliament House, and I've also sold 10,000 tickets for my tour. We still have seats available, by the way, for the 10:15 showing where you guys are. We can't add seats fast enough because people are beginning to wise up to this name-calling strategy from the left.
Okay. Well, give us a snapshot of what people will hear at these talks. Why should someone buy a ticket and go and listen to you?
Sure. Well, I'm coming sort of as a warning from America, really. Of course, over there, the culture wars, whether it's between genders, sexes, races, politics, you name it, are bitter and bloody and ugly. And I'm coming over to Australia with my stand-up tour to sort of shed a bit of light on that, explain what happens in America, and to beg you guys not to go down the same path. Australia has, a well-deserved reputation for being commonsensical and for having a good sense of humor. I think you need to retain those two things. Don't give in to the political correctness and the hand-wringing and school-marmishness that is raising its head in the media and in politics. Don't give in to any of this stuff. It's a real shame how public debate, on the centre even, not even just on the left, but even centrist public debate from public broadcasters all over the Western world is becoming completely, hijacked, really, by these school moms from the far left who don't like jokes, don't like certain language, don't like certain opinions, don't like certain things. My show is really just a laugh-a-minute exploration of free speech, questioning of the hypocrisies of feminism, the Black Lives Matter movement, the various different social justice factions in politics, on college campuses and in the press, excoriation of the media that allows these feminist activists to peddle conspiracy theories about the wage gap and campus rape culture. And it's my sort of me telling you what I've seen after 2 years in America and begging Australia not to go the same way.
Speaking of free speech, it's been reported in the Australian newspaper that you referred to the former Prime Minister Julia Gillard here as a complete prick. Why did you say that?
Oh, well, she's one of my favorite YouTube. She's one of my favorite YouTube pastimes. If I ever, really want to get angry about something, or I want to wind myself up before a show, I go and watch this terrible woman. My God, it's almost impossible to believe someone with such low IQ could be in a position of authority and influence over a country like Australia. But apparently, you guys let it happen. She's a horror show from start to finish, as I think most Australians now agree. She's one of my favorite things to do is look her up on YouTube and just have hearty belly laughs, but also worry whether that, if that tendency, that sort of hectoring, shrewish, bullying intimidatory and totalitarian kind of attitude to free speech and public debate is going to take hold in the West. It's going to come, through politicians like her.
All right, you're obviously not a fan of her. What are your impressions of our current Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull?
I haven't seen anything especially horrifying or especially great about the guys you have in there at the moment. I liked Tony Abbott. I thought he was pretty cool. I thought he upset all the right people. I enjoyed his clashes with Miss Gillard. You guys at the moment, I don't have extraordinarily strong feelings either way.
Well, we don't know what to think of Malcolm Turnbull either. Look, you're also quoted today to say that federal politicians here should not pass the gay marriage bill. Is that correct?
Well, I said that I was a bit torn about it. I know I am married. I'm married to a black guy, as I said. But I'm okay with gay marriage in America because there are constitutional protections for freedom of religious conscience, freedom of religious beliefs. You don't have that really anywhere outside of America. So I'm reluctant to encourage people to vote for gay marriage in any country where there aren't, constitutionally enshrined protections for people of faith. And it sounds like your politicians are debating stuff like that. Whether or not it makes it into law seems like it's an open question at the moment. But I wouldn't want I would be deeply skeptical about the motivations of any law and the people supporting that law unless they are prepared to enshrine deeply, completely watertight restrictions, protecting, priests from being compelled to officiate ceremonies that violate their religious conscience, and also making sure that, whether it's adoption agencies or any other kind of the apparatus of churches in general, that these places are not going to be adversely affected by us letting dudes marry each other.
Are you an odd gay man in that you are married to another man, legally married, where you can get married, and yet you are against gay marriage without extensive protection for religions? Is that an odd belief in the gay community? Because it seems to me it is.
It might be a minority belief, but I don't think it's a minuscule minority. I think you'd be surprised by the number of conservative homosexuals, and I think you'd also be surprised by the number of religious conservatives. We're not particularly loud voices. You don't hear from us very often. Certainly no journalists are ever, nosing around trying to find out, do intelligent, nuanced profiles of people, working out how they reconcile, the challenges of their faith with their sexual urges, with their romantic lives. You don't read a lot of intelligent journalism like that these days. I wish we did. But I think you'd be surprised. I think 2 elections ago in the UK, gay men said 50% of gay men said they were going to vote Tory, they were going to vote for a Conservative Party. Donald Trump had a huge gay fan base. I threw a party for him at the Republican National Convention last year. It was colossal. It was the best attended party of the whole convention. So I think you'd be surprised by that. It's just that journalists don't tend to cover us so much.
I want to ask you about censorship. You've been banned from Twitter. Here in Australia, Channel 9's Today Show and Channel 10's The Project have cancelled scheduled interviews with you. Why have they done that?
I think they've done it because they've seen me. I was on with I've done a couple of your shows now, and I think they've seen me in action, and they've realised that I'm not just, some redneck or some bloviating hothead Fox News host. I think they've realised that I'm a more complicated and nuanced and intelligent adversary, and they're worried about going up against me on live TV. I think they're worried about me wiping the floor with them, frankly. I think, Waleed Ali, your guy on The Project, doesn't strike me as particularly intellectually substantial. All of his interviews seem to be pre-recorded, and I think he's petrified of going up against me live. The vast majority of your hosts on Australian TV, as far as I can tell, are pretty far left and pretty cowardly. So I think it speaks for itself.
You've spoken out heavily against Islam. Are you opposed to the religion, the political or politicisation of the religion, or Islamic people, or all three?
Well, I'm not against any individual specific Muslim, although I wish they'd snap out of believing the things that they do. Islam and political Islam, if you like, Islam and Islamism, I don't draw a clear line between them. And I think the only people who do are just being nice. I think it's a sort of polite concession that we give to Islam, suggesting that there are 2 versions of Islam. There's the nice, real religion of peace, and there's the other totalitarian, belief system, somehow obscurely connected to Islam, but not Islam, that oppresses women and murders homosexuals. I don't make that clear distinction, there are hundreds of millions of people living in Muslim countries where I could be killed for being gay. There's 11 Muslim countries where that's not the fringe, that's not political Islam, that's not ISIS, that's mainstream Muslim culture. Mainstream Muslim culture routinely abuses women and murders homosexuals. So, you'll forgive me if I don't make that polite distinction like politicians like to do. I'm not particularly anxious to save the feelings of, people who believe in a system of ideology that wants me dead.
You've also spoken out against feminism. Why is that?
Well, I think feminism describes itself one way and acts another way. I think it describes itself as a movement for the equality of women, but it behaves like a sort of ugly, man-hating, crusade fueled by, these bitter old women in gender studies departments in universities. It does not behave like a movement designed to advance the equality of women and to promote the harmony of the sexes. Men need women and women need men, and we're all happier when we're all getting on. But feminists seem to want to drive the sexes apart, not bring them together. And the way that they behave, that mean, sociopathic, vindictive way that they behave, the language they use, which is just dreadful, I think women agree with me. And that's why so few women describe themselves as feminists, except, of course, journalists.
Milo Yiannopoulos, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Milo Yiannopoulos there. His Troll Academy tour will be here in Melbourne on December the 4th. It's actually hosted by a former contributor to this program and one-time candidate for the Prime Ministership of Australia, Mark Latham. Tickets still available for the December the 4th date at 10:15 p.m. You can go to his website, milolive.com.au. All right, I'll take your calls in a moment. 96900 693 13 13 32. I've got to say, after hearing that, I don't know why so many people seem to fear and or want to censor Milo Yiannopoulos. It's 20 after 5.
3AW Breakfast.
Hey, listen, if they're going to be generic
with Milo Yiannopoulos, he was really advocating for restrictions on same-sex marriage here in Australia, religious protections and so forth. But as he admits, he is married to a man in the United States. So, odd collection of views. Sam, what did you think?
G'day, Tom. Look, interesting chat. A part of me wants to give Milo a chance, listen to what he's going to say, but what I find hypocritical about that interview is he started off describing greenies and lefties as they revert to name-calling when they can't engage in a constructive debate with him. But when you asked him about his opinions on Julia Gillard, all he could say was that she had a low IQ and he fires himself up by watching YouTube videos of her, but he didn't go into any detail about her. Commentary or ideas and what it is that really offends him about her. And similar with Waleed Ali, he made the comment that, doesn't see him as very intellectual and he's got pre-recorded interviews and whatnot, but nothing that really goes into the whys of why he has issues with that.
Look, I think Sam, he probably, as much as he would and does do name-calling or accuses the left of name-calling him, he is just as guilty of that from his side of politics, however you define that. What I find interesting is just his grab bag of views. It is unusual to meet a gay person who is legally married to a man who opposes or wants restrictions on gay marriage. That is unusual. I get his view on Islam. I mean, there's no doubt in many Muslim countries homosexuality is punished by 100 lashes, as it is in Aceh in Indonesia, or death in places like Saudi Arabia. If I was gay, I'm not, but if I were, I wouldn't want to go to places like that, nor would I respect them. Peter, hello.
Yeah, hi, Tom. I've never heard of this guy before, but listen to your conversation with him. I agree with him. I mean, not once during your conversation did he promote hatred or retaliation or retribution against any group. He just says it how it is, and a lot of people in this day and age, being politically correct, are too scared to say it. I just think he is saying what people are thinking.
Well, he's certainly saying what some people are thinking, because he sold, by his own admission, 10,000 tickets in Melbourne, Sydney and I think Brisbane. Look, I always like to hear what people say. I like to hear what you say. I like to hear what various opinion makers say. And this bloke has, he's made a name for himself. Tom, hello.
Oh, g'day, Tom. Look, it's pretty hard to not to not say anything that he did say there was controversial. Look, Milo's given us fair warning of what's coming because the freedoms are not enshrined in this same-sex marriage law. There is big, big trouble ahead, Tom, and Milo has warned us about America and Europe, and we need to take heed of that, or we will see all that unfold here.
Well, maybe. I mean, Australia's different. Like, he has given warnings in other forums about large-scale Islamic immigration into this country, or indeed into any country. There have been accusations levelled against him about promoting paedophilia, which he has denied. I ran out of time to ask him about that. Look, again, there are tickets available in Melbourne. I'm not telling you to go and see it. I have not bought one, but December the 4th, 10:15 p.m, you can have him for an hour and a half or so, and you'll hear everything that he thinks. Catherine, good afternoon.
Hi, Tom. I totally agree with you on the feminist movement. You have all these women who are suppressed in this country in terms of a race, and our feminists never come out. They never say anything about it. We have young children still going through operations for their sexual preference, and you don't hear anything about it.
Catherine, he said that most women don't want to describe themselves as feminists. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I'm not a feminist, and I agree that we're all just kind of equal people. You know, if you're better at one job than I am, well, then you should get it. You know.
Well, that's a good point of view, because, I mean, you know, it's often lost in this. I mean, job quotas is something I cannot stand, where you say, we've just realised we don't have any black people in this department, therefore we must go out and employ someone, or we don't have anybody who's Indigenous, or whatever. I mean, business is hard enough. It's very difficult to turn a profit these days, you know, unless you go and employ the best people. You should be gender and colour and religion blind when you employ people. You should assess them on their ability to do the job, and I will defend that right till I'm blue in the face.